Sandy here. In this video I'm going to show you how I built this thing. And this actually was already built, but it looked much different. It looked like this. And I hated it so much that I didn't even think twice to tear it completely apart and immediately start building this beautiful unit. Now this isn't perfect. It's not a perfect unit at all, but it's a good prototype. I'd prefer it to be made out of metal, but I don't have that kind of tooling equipment available to me immediately. Now what's nice about it, it has a nice handle, and it's got some cigarette lighters and on-off switch for them, and it has my dimmer switch design in it. You can look at my previous videos to see that. It'll be linked in the description. And yeah, I'm just improving on previous designs. You can look at the video of me building this one and it'll help explain this one. This was version 1.2, I think, so very different from even this design. A lot of changes were made. But yeah, check out my previous videos. All the parts, all the equipment, everything I'm using is linked in the description. Any comments or questions you have at any time during this video, it's a long video and I really feel like I glossed over way too much of this build. Just throw down a question, I'll try to get to it as soon as possible. I also answer all the questions and I list all the new subscribers once a month in an update video, so you have that to look forward as well. Anyways, hope you enjoy. I'm going to be removing this and creating a whole new one using one of these groups. I'll have to just solder up an entirely new group, not a big deal. I'm going to do it exactly the way I said I wanted to do this one over here. I really only need this guy here, so I'm only going to put this small guy in and use him up. It's 20 amps. This whole system shouldn't be doing more than 20. This was all cut up, and of course this was removed. I'm going to do 3 rows. Try and get as much real estate out of this space as possible, because everything's, I'm going to have a lot more room because this guy is so high. So here's a good example of the first iteration, and then here's the transition to second iteration. So this is what I tried doing, and if you can tell, it looks very messy. And it's running 2 separate wires, and that's when I transitioned to staggering it. It's strong. That's the only plus side to this design. This one's strong because those legs are tied together, which is actually a bad thing. If you can see how I did that. See, that's really stupid. You're gonna need to build a jig. This is mine. So basically it just holds it in place in 3 spots and then leave the other one open, so once you're finished you can slide it out. But basically, so you'll get these in the mail. Should look like this if it's from Alibaba, just pretty well packaged, and then you properly put them out on your jig, set them out. Should be really tight. I hot glued this one a lot heavier. See, I did 3 to 4 in this middle area. I also did it in these big holes here. I just jammed it in there and then squeezed out a bunch of glue. On the bottoms and tops I did 2. I have to remember to create these legs that stick out. So I better do that now. Otherwise I'll never do it. Pried it apart and shoved it in almost every other one. So right here I left 2. See, this one doesn't line up here, right? And this one could have, but this one did, so that's fine. So pretty much every 2. And the way I pry it apart is I just use a needle nose and I use a really small flathead. That's be strong enough to handle jamming in there and prying it apart. You'll see it kind of looks like petroleum jelly almost. And then you wrap your wires. So you start off, you wrap a lot of wire around the first one, and then as you zigzag it, you use your one finger to hold it down on your one hand, and then the other hand to zigzag it. So you can see how it looks there. It's up just a bit. It just has to be up off the plastic a little bit. I suggest getting everything prepped and then soldering. I think it's best to do all your soldering all at once, bang it all out. I took some foam board and cut it up into slots so it pushes the entire unit up, and that allows a nice channel. So I'm glad this is definitely going to work. I made this piece of paper as a template and put it on the inside. Since there's a little notch on the inside, this plate is much bigger. So I just put it in, and then you put a hole in the center and just dot it out with a Sharpie and then drill it out. So I bought this off Amazon yesterday and it showed up this morning, which is excellent. This is called a step drill bit. $10 Canadian, and it took 24 hours to show up on my doorstep, which was very surprising. I bought it because I kept running into instances where I need to go really big, and a step drill bit is the only thing that goes really big, since, you know, for size comparison, it's huge. I first did a small hole, then a medium hole, and then a large hole using this drill bit. Because I read reviews, these things are not very well hardened, so I want to only use it when I absolutely have to. At the smaller sizes, I wouldn't recommend using it, so drill the hole as big as possible and then use this guy. Alright, so there we go. Makes a nice hole. I had to put a notch in. I used a drill bit to make that notch. A little messy, but not a big deal. So the cigarette lighter has to be taken apart pretty much every single time in order for these clips to function properly, to get a nice snug fit. Otherwise they just hit the metal casing and they don't retract. And the notch is for this guy up here. I've damaged this one a little bit, but it's all part of learning. And you fit it in and it fits in that notch quite snug. With this guy here, I used permanent marker to mark off how deep I go. Highly recommend that. Use marker and a caliper. Ta-da! So that's what it looks like. And next I'll cut out the square for this on-off switch, and then I'll have two of these on the other side. I'm pretty happy with that. Right, it's all this metal shaving, so you want to do all your metal working long before you put down anything else. The way that I'm going to be cutting out for this switch is I used my caliper, and then I cut out a piece of paper. You put the paper in there, and then you mark it with marker around the outside of it. Then you'll have your corners, and you drill those corners out. Then you can move over to this side and you can marker, connect the dot style. That's it, ready to be cut out using Dremel. That's it cut out. Did a pretty good job. You need to file it down once you're done cutting it with the Dremel. Now when you're cutting with the Dremel, you can lightly push upward while it's on to get some better accuracy and flatness. So you can push, but do note, while you're pushing, right, instead of cutting inward, you're pushing up, and that's why I have it, the other side is smooth, right? When you're pushing up, you have an extremely high chance of this disc shattering and flying out at you, so make sure you have eye protection, and I would wrap something, because this doesn't have much weight to it. Maybe like grab a scarf and put it around your neck, because I've seen guys where they've had this stuff explode on them and it goes right into their neck. And the way I'm working, this thing would fly out and hit my neck. So You always use brand new discs, and if you're doing anything other than pushing inward, if you're doing any kind of torquing, your chances of this disc shattering increase exponentially. So that's basically what it'll look like. This one's a little loose, so I think I'll just use some hot glue. It's kind of why I wanted to do two of them. You can have a small, more efficient inverter plugged in and running if you want. A little 300 watt one that has a lower idle, because this inverter has a very high idle consumption. I like that there's this fan here to blow air on here, since the entire unit will be encased. Once you get it all put back together after such a big overhaul, you always want to test it and make sure it runs. Right, and I've got these lights running, so it clearly works just fine. I can put it into any number and it works. So, and I also have a dimmer on it to test and make sure that it can handle varying loads. So with everything tested out, we can now start moving on. This will sit like this. I want it to be right here. Now luckily I do have space down there, so I can probably use a wood block or something to make this secure in place. It'll just sit flush with this black board here. I just have a bucket full of different ones. So I have this wood screw type. I use two of them. They're about 3 inches long. So I just figured out, you know, I put it up against it, figure out how deep, and then I did my initial holes so that the head would fit all the way down in there. And then I drilled it down in. Then I drilled it back out, and then I cut off the tip, whatever went too far and stuck out the other side. I just cut it off with these guys. And yeah, pretty simple. It's perfect for a prototype. So you can see that, pretty straightforward. I put in this wood block. It looks horribly ugly, but no one will ever see it. It'll be just below the surface, right? And this guy's done. I got this, so I cut up these two, and then I glued them together. It looks better like that. In a final version, I would be using some kind of steel plate, maybe, and nuts and bolts purely, and a 1/4 or an 1/8 thick drywall, super thin drywall instead of this, but for now this is, you know, this is fine. And this is it finished. So I've soldered just onto the tip here, right there, and then I've soldered onto the negative lead of every single battery. You can see I have finished it now, and it's running out here. I've already beep tested the whole thing. It looks very nice and clean. It's very easy to upgrade or add or remove anything, so I'm very happy with that. And it's pretty straightforward. All the wires seem to be tucked down very nicely without having to use any hot glue. I'm just using what I can find, so I had to put a spacer in, just some board, because still prototype, right? Fuse brackets. Basically I'm just securing it whatever way I feel like, and if any bolts or nuts stick out, I just use a grinder and I grind it off. It's really quick and easy. I have these wooden blocks here. Replace this one. It's much better now. Next I'll have to do this, but right now I'm doing this. Put self-tappers in here as just a ledge. I found that to be my best option. So for the BMS, this goes for any BMS you have, I found the easiest thing to do is just put 4 screws in. This is assuming if your back plate is wood, obviously. You put 4 screws in, and I put a lot of liquid tape on the bottom side just to be safe. And then you just figure out, so I have it so that these two, I line them up with these two bolts here, right? So they'll be resting on here and here. Okay, and on the back it doesn't matter because there's nothing on the circuit board in those two corners. So you don't have to worry too much. And then you put it down in, and then you kind of rock it around, and if your screws are not at the right height, then it'll be uneven, it'll wobble. So you got to just set your heights correctly, and then I'll get the hot glue gun, and I'll just put dabs on the top of each, and then just push it in. I've got this all ready to go. I just have to put the lugs on each side of these guys, and then put them into place. So for this guy, I've already clipped off all the brackets. There was a bunch of plastic parts, now it's nice and smooth, and then I'll hot glue this stuff together, and there's conveniently there's a little notch so that the ribbon cable can just sit down inside this notch. I'll hot glue it down so it won't get damaged. So I'm going to work on that next, making a plate that comes out and holds this entire unit up like that kind of. And then this will go on top. See, it's $1.50 at the dollar store, Dollarama. Dollarama also sells this much thinner white stuff. You have to go to Walmart to get it to be the same quality as this stuff for some strange reason, and they charge $8 instead of $1.50 for this stuff. See, $1.50 for the cheap stuff, and then $1.50 for the high quality black stuff, so figure that one out, right? This is ready to go, and on the other side, right, so that's all it is really. So this is this built. I just used 2 blocks of wood, screwed them in. Pretty self-explanatory. This is hot glued together, so it's much easier to handle. Right, and cable management, pretty straightforward. Just drilled holes, very simple. Situations, I have to drill holes from underneath up through to lock these into place. I don't have to, but I'd prefer to. I'd feel a lot better having it fully secured from underneath. Okay, so we're at this stage. Right, so everything is ready to go at this point. All I have to do is take that black cover and cut it out so that it fits this properly. So these are all the parts, just to have 2 cigarette lighters. I got my main leads. You see, I've used heat shrink on them. I've used these double. It's got a male and a female on it. You see how close they are together. And if I wasn't to put heat shrink on there, like another layer, you could see it's damn near touching. We're looking at 1 millimeter clearance. It's no good, so we'll put some more heat shrink on. Pretty simple. I just did a beep test. So a lot of wires. I definitely could have went shorter on my wire runs, but it doesn't matter. It's very thick wire. I think it's very well protected. I can't see any major issues. I put some electrical tape just to protect that ferrite core. I'm going to show you how quickly you can do a beep test. You can leave one of them just jammed in here, and then you can go even faster. And you can do this while the batteries are in as well. And that's how you test if the fuses underneath are blown or not. Pretty straightforward, no issues. I did my beep test and I found that there was an entire section that was just not registering here. Yeah, the flux is still there, so this entire section just got missed. At least I caught it, so I'll just quickly solder it back up, and since it was never welded in the first place, it'll be quite easy to deal with. And I had to go out and buy some nuts and bolts. So these are the ones, I had to go to Lowe's to buy them too. So I bought different sizes. This long one I used for the shunt way in back here. Wing nuts are going to be on the top now. Much easier to deal with wing nuts than it is to deal with these. Don't need a wrench. I ran out of these guys, so I ordered more. I've got really big lugs, but I need 6. This is 6 AWG, and I ordered a bunch of 8 AWG, so which is smaller than this. So really for lugs, you gotta just measure your stuff, but basically 6 and 8 millimeter lugs, and they're from this company. It's off eBay. I just ordered them from there, and it's like $1 each. I wasn't happy with this old faceplate. I felt like there were too many problems with it, and when I was taking it out to try and wire these in, it shattered. So I made up this one, and I've decided to put this dimmer switch module into it. I've moved my version 2.2 with the fuse and whatnot over here by a cigarette lighter. Extremely ugly, extremely rough. See, I made my own faceplate just using tin snips. But anyways, this is garbage. I was just using it as a template, but this entire unit, it'll be different, it'll look better, but it'll be seated down in there. I'll have a white one. I have to go to the store and buy one, but it'll be sitting there. So that'll be there, ready to go. And then, you know, I think that'll look much better. Making this thing, it was just a lot of measuring and cutting as you go, unfortunately. So the tools I used a jigsaw, and I used this kit. It saves me a ton of time. It's very fast, very easy. I got this thing for like 60 bucks. It goes for like 100 bucks. It's a Makita 102 piece set. The drill bits, they shatter. These small ones are absolute garbage, but it doesn't matter because if you just need to do a few quick holes, I use these on metal, no issues. But it is a garbage set. There was a whole bunch of sockets here, but I just used a Dremel and I cut the whole thing out, and now I filled the sides in so that stuff doesn't get lost down in here. So I just put some paper towel, crammed it in there. It also absorbs any oil or moisture. But anyways, I use this, and you just drill out the corners, then you jigsaw it. This guy, I did like before, I painted it with a Sharpie. I painted the top, and then I put this down, and then I just hit it with a hammer, and then it marked it out, and then I drilled it with the drill. These are 5/16 bolts, but it doesn't matter. You choose what you need, what you have. And then for this one, it was a lot of measuring with a ruler, a lot of finagling to try and get it so it sits in like this. And then for here, for this guy here, it's pretty thick wire, so you have to drill it out on an angle. So I took this, again, use a proper drill, don't use an impact. You can destroy the chuck doing this, but this is how I did it. I basically just shoved it down and I just reamed back and forth quite a bit, and then it all fits and it's all fine, and then I can put in my light switch, and then I'll have a whole built-in unit. Thanks again to Andy Ham. Let me know, man, I've got your laptop still. This thing working great. Thanks again, really appreciate you giving me that. Really, really nice, man. It fits in here perfectly, and it doesn't electrocute me like this piece of junk over here. This thing here, it would electrocute you if you touched it. If you touched the negative, it would electrocute you. So ridiculous. Tons of room down there in this cavity, which is good because I can put any BMS I want down in here. Right, I can put this one. Those are really the only ones. Right, this one is like 10 bucks. That's great. This one is 25 bucks, which is really good still. And then this one up here, I can't recommend it at all. It's a piece of junk. So, but I'm still using it because it works. But I don't think it BMSs. Right, at most it protects. You can see the amount of marking off I had to do, trial and error. It mostly just boils down to just putting the pieces physically down on there, shuffling them around to try and figure out the absolute minimal amount that you can cut, because you can always remove but you can't add, so you want to cut out the least amount as humanly possible. I'm drilling out these holes. I mostly just templated from the old one, other than this one. The other two I just templated. I've got these, I just ran them through these holes. Should be fine. Can't think of a reason why that would be of any risk. It's not that sharp. It's not sharp enough to cut through. But I have to buy some parts, and then I'll be able to hook this up. I added this fuse way down here. It's an 8 amp fuse. I could go up to like 14 probably, but there's no point. But I had it lying around, so I might as well add it. And then I've had this cable lying around from one of the old UPSs, and it worked perfectly to fit in there, and it was already shielded, so I used it. And there's lots of clearance down there. There's no issues. Now, it seems a little stupid to put the fuse all the way down there, but no, if that fuse is blowing, that means you're doing something really stupid. And it's not that hard. You just need some needle noses. But you can visually inspect it from outside without having to worry. Whereas if I put it here, it'd be at risk of touching other wires, positive wires and whatnot. And this cable, it was a little too short. So by shifting everything over about almost a foot, I've got lots of room now to work with. So it works out better to be way down in there hidden. I'd prefer it to be an external one, but I don't have any right now. I would just drill a hole way down in that corner and then put a fuse in there and connect it, but that way it'd be external, and then I could access it through the back. At most you could like plug in an inverter, but they can't handle a 7S system. I'm pretty sure I fried this thing trying to run it. I ran into a problem where the buck converter wouldn't dim, and I ended up having to create my own bridge from just there, right where my fingernail is, over to this resistor here, this 2K resistor. So when I was removing this potentiometer, I by accident damaged that connection. So you just have to use a small thin piece of wire and bridge that connection. It's a work in progress, but so far it looks pretty good. Almost done. I can't be any happier with how much time I spent building it and how much money it cost to build it. I don't even know how much it cost to build it, because most of the parts I already had. Almost everything I had, and the rest was not expensive at all. So I'm very happy. I even got the inverter for free from Andy Ham. So thanks again, man. That's really cool. Now I have a portable unit. I don't know how much this weighs, but I've lifted up. I've carried around 61 pounds. That's not very heavy. And this is the underside, so you can see I just used a cheap piece of wood from an old piece of furniture, and I bolted it in pretty heavy. But yeah, it's okay for a holder. It's good. It's the right size for your hand, the right distance away from here. It moves. I just found random pieces of metal, and I had this bracket here. I just found a weird bracket from an old piece of equipment, and I just heated it up and hammered the shit out of it. I put rubber feet on here. These ones are nice. They're off of, again, something that was just broken and lying around. It seems near the end I kind of gave up hope and just stopped filming. So the rest of the build just magically appeared. You know, it's self-explanatory. Just brackets, cleaning things up, cutting out ugly pieces of wood to just hold in place. Now, of course, I'd prefer this to be completely made out of metal. I'd still want drywall, thin 1/4 or 1/8 inch drywall, just for a fire absorber. Drywall is incredible. Never underestimate the use of drywall in a build project that is potentially combustible. But anyways, I'm very happy with it now. I like everything about it. I'm still waiting on that fuse to show up, but this plate, it works great. Watch my previous videos to understand how this works, how well it works. For these, I just use tape whiteout to make these markings. This bottom plate just goes down over that. Not too crazy. I've already charged it up once, and it's very balanced. Now, with the BMSs, they don't start balancing until you pass 4.18 volts, and you have to leave it for a long time, because what it does is if this is 4.2 and this is 4.15, it'll just keep burning this one down while it's charging the entire unit up. So you're gonna just have to leave it for a long time, and that's why it's so important to properly balance, like organize your batteries. You have to do your best to get exact milliamp hours in series, not in parallel. Thank you for sticking out to the end of this video. Like I said, it's a crazy long video, but you know, maybe you skipped to the end and cheated, but I don't blame you, because I spent hours editing this damn video. Where is it? Look at this. All these video files just to do this. Like, this is crazy. All these video files, and then the editing process is, you know, it's fine. I think this is my longest video. Look at that, up to 25 minutes, and I haven't even put in the intro and outro yet. But yeah, look at that. That's what it looks like. So much fun. Being a YouTuber is fun. No, I do this to teach you guys so you can learn how to build these yourself, you know? It's fun, we all share, we enjoy, we share our knowledge, and we become better people, better at building this stuff, you know? You can't expand, you can't grow alone in a box. You have to talk to other people. You know, people always say, "Oh, you're going to patent it." No, there's nothing to patent. Only idiots patent stuff these days. China doesn't give a crap. They'll just steal it from you and mass produce it using slave labor. So don't worry about it, you know. Anyways, yeah, wing nuts is another micro improvement to my design. The only way I can improve this design further is by making it all out of metal, and hopefully I'll probably do that next month. It might cost me a bit of money, but I really want a metal shell version, since I'm so happy with how this one turned out. But anyways, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and have a great day, guys. Bye.